still remember the way the sun hit the glass doors of the hotel that morning, making the whole place sparkle like it was showing off. My family and I had just arrived, all of us dragging suitcases across the shiny marble floor. It should have felt exciting, walking into a place so grand. But of course, nothing is ever that simple when my Uncle Richard is around. The moment he spotted me, he gave that smug little smirk he's famous for. Well, well, look who decided to tag along, he said loudly, making sure half the lobby could hear. Samantha, are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't exactly budget friendly, you know. My stomach tightened, but I didn't let him see it. That's his game. He loves pushing buttons, especially mine. He's been doing it since I was a kid. Even now, with people checking in all around us, he had to make me feel small. I forced a polite smile and kept walking, my suitcase wheels clicking on the floor like a clock, counting down to another one of his insults. He wasn't done. He never is. He moved closer, straightening his tie like he owned the hotel. These kinds of places aren't cheap, sweetheart. Maybe they'll let you peek into the lobby for free. His voice carried, bouncing off the tall walls, and I caught a few people glancing over. He loved the attention. I could feel my mom tense beside me, whispering for me to just ignore him. But ignoring Richard has never been easy. He feeds off making others uncomfortable. His wife, Denise, gave me a half-hearted smile, as if to apologize, but she didn't step in either. Nobody ever does. He's too loud, too sharp, too sure of himself. I wanted to snap back, to tell him he had no idea who I was anymore, but instead I bit my tongue. I kept my chin up and walked straight to the front desk, determined not to give him the show he wanted. Still, his voice followed me like an echo. I'm just saying, some of us are used to this kind of luxury. Don't feel bad if it's a little out of your league. The receptionist looked between us, unsure whether to laugh or stay professional. Richard leaned against the counter like he was starring in his own movie, tapping his gold watch for everyone to notice. I stood there, my heart pounding, pretending I didn't hear him. But inside I could feel something building, something stronger than the embarrassment he was trying to throw at me. I didn't know it yet, but this was the last time Richard would ever get away with making me feel like I didn't belong. Because this time, I wasn't the little girl he used to talk down to at family dinners. This time, I had something in my bag that would shut him up for good. Growing up with Uncle Richard was like living under a shadow you couldn't escape. He was always bigger, louder, richer, or at least that's how he wanted everyone to see him. At every family gathering, he would pull up in a brand new car, rev the engine a few extra times, and make sure everyone was watching. If someone asked about it, he'd go into detail about how much it cost, how he got the exclusive deal, and why it was better than anything anyone else could afford. When I was a kid, I used to sit quietly at the dinner table while he talked about his vacations to Europe or his latest business win. Samantha, he'd say, leaning over his glass of wine with that smug smile. Someday, if you work really, really hard, you might be able to afford something like this. Everyone would laugh politely, and I'd force a smile, but inside I burned. It wasn't encouragement. It was his way of reminding me that I was beneath him. I remember one Christmas when I was 16. I had saved up all year from babysitting and part-time work just to buy my mom a necklace she'd been eyeing. I was so proud when she opened it, her eyes watering as she hugged me. Then Richard, sitting at the end of the table in his expensive suit, leaned back and chuckled. Cute, he said, shaking his head. But it's not real gold, is it? Maybe next year, kiddo. My smile faded so fast I thought my cheeks would crack. My mom tried to defend me, but the damage was already done. That was Richard's power. He could take your happiest moment and crush it with a single comment. As I got older, it didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. When I graduated college, I was the first in my immediate family to do it. I was proud, standing there in my cap and gown, but Richard was quick to deflate it. Congratulations, he said, patting me on the shoulder. Now let's see if that degree actually makes you any money. Don't end up wasting it like most people do. He didn't mean advice, he meant to plant doubt, and it worked. For years, his voice was in my head, telling me I wasn't enough. But what Richard never knew was that every insult, every snide comment, every time he made me feel small, I was quietly stacking it all up inside me like fuel. I worked jobs he didn't know about. I stayed up nights pushing through projects when I wanted to give up. I built my own success piece by piece, away from his eyes, because I wanted nothing more than to prove him wrong. So when we walked into that hotel lobby on the family trip, and he looked at me with that same old smirk, he thought I was still that girl from Christmas, the one who couldn't afford real gold, but he had no idea who I'd become. We were all lined up at the hotel front desk, the whole family buzzing with excitement, dragging their bags and chattering about the pool and the restaurants. I had been waiting for this moment quietly, keeping my plans tucked close to my chest. But of course, Richard couldn't let me have even a second of peace. The receptionist smiled at me politely, ready to take my name, but before I could even open my mouth, Richard stepped in front of me. He slapped his hand down on the counter like he owned the place. "Excuse me," he said loudly. "Before you go wasting time on her, maybe check if she's even in the system. These kinds of hotels don't usually take walk-ins with limited budgets." He tilted his head toward me and chuckled, making sure the family behind us heard every word. I froze for a moment, my jaw tight. The receptionist glanced at me awkwardly, her fingers hesitating on the keyboard. My mom started to say something, but Richard kept going. He leaned closer to the desk, lowering his voice just enough to sound conspiratorial, but still loud enough for everyone to hear. "She probably meant to book something down the street. There's a motel a couple blocks away, much more her speed, if you know what I mean." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. It wasn't just an insult, it was a public dismissal, like he was declaring to the whole world that I didn't belong there. My cousins exchanged uncomfortable glances. Denise, his wife, tried to shush him, but he waved her off like she was a child. He was enjoying this too much. I could feel my hands clenching around the handle of my suitcase. For years I'd swallowed these kinds of comments, letting him embarrass me, letting him take the spotlight while I stood in silence. But this moment, it cut deeper, because it wasn't just about me. He was trying to make me disappear, erase me from the picture, right there in front of my family and strangers who didn't even know us. "Richard," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady, "I can handle my own check-in." He turned toward me, smirking. "Handle it, Samantha. I'm just trying to save you the humiliation. These suites are thousands a night. Why set yourself up for rejection? Trust me, stick to what you can afford. Leave the luxury to the people who are used to it." His words hung in the air, heavy and cutting. The receptionist glanced at me, waiting, almost embarrassed for me. My mom touched my arm, whispering, "Just ignore him." But I couldn't, not this time. Something inside me shifted, stronger than the embarrassment, stronger than the anger. I looked at Richard, really looked at him, and for the first time, I wasn't intimidated. He thought he had already won, that he'd knocked me down like always, but he had no idea what was coming next. This was the moment everything turned. I took a slow breath, letting Richard's laughter fade into the background. My heart was pounding, but not from embarrassment this time. It was from the quiet thrill of knowing something he didn't. For once, I wasn't the girl trying to defend myself. I was the one holding the ace. Without rushing, I reached into my bag and pulled out the sleek black card the hotel had mailed me a week earlier. I could feel Richard's eyes on me, probably expecting me to fumble with some budget reservation or stammer an excuse. Instead, I placed the card on the counter gently, almost like I was setting down a weapon. The receptionist's expression shifted the moment she saw it. Her shoulders straightened, her tone became sharper, more respectful. "Ah, Miss Carter," she said warmly, "we've been expecting you. You're all set for the presidential suite." I swear the entire lobby went quiet for a beat. My family froze, and Richard's smug grin collapsed like a sandcastle hit by a wave. "Presidential suite?" he repeated, his voice cracking. The receptionist nodded with a smile, typing quickly. "Yes, top floor. The most exclusive suite in the hotel. We've already arranged for your personal concierge to assist you during your stay." She looked at me with genuine respect, sliding the key card back across the counter. "Welcome." I smiled and picked it up, savoring the weight of it in my hand. Richard blinked like he couldn't process what he just heard. That must be some kind of mistake," he stammered, his voice sharper now, tinged with panic. But the receptionist only shook her head politely. "No mistake, sir. Miss Carter is one of our VIP guests." I turned to face him, meeting his wide eyes with a calm I'd been waiting years to feel. "You were saying something about a motel down the street?" I asked softly, letting the words hang between us. My cousin snickered behind him, unable to hold it in any longer. Richard's face went red, his jaw tightening, but he had nothing to throw back. For the first time in my life, he was the one left speechless. He tried to laugh it off, muttering something about good for you, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. The staff quickly arranged for a bellhop to take my luggage, treating me with the kind of deference Richard always craved. I walked toward the private elevator reserved for suite guests, the sound of my heels echoing on the marble floor. Every step I took felt like years of swallowed insults falling away. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking in the background while he took center stage. I was the one everyone was watching, and Richard was just another red-faced man standing in the lobby, choking on his own pride. And as the elevator doors slid shut in front of him, I smiled to myself. This was my moment, finally my turn to win. For a second, it felt like time had frozen. The receptionist's words, "presidential suite," were still hanging in the air, and everyone around us seemed to pause, as if waiting for Richard's reaction. I turned my head slowly and saw his face. His smirk was gone. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, but nothing came out. His eyes darted between me, the key card in my hand, and the receptionist who was still smiling at me with respect. It was like watching a balloon deflate in slow motion. The man who always had the last word suddenly had none. My cousins exchanged looks, their mouths twitching as if they were holding back laughter. Even Denise, his wife, shifted uncomfortably like she was embarrassed for him. Richard finally managed a weak laugh, trying to brush it off. "Well, I guess you've been saving for this, huh?" His voice cracked halfway through, betraying him. "Good for you. Splurging once in a while isn't a bad thing." But the receptionist didn't let him take the easy way out. She leaned forward with a professional smile and said, "Actually, sir, Miss Carter is one of our VIP guests. She has access to our private amenities, including the rooftop lounge and personal staff." That hit him harder than anything I could have said. His laugh died in his throat. His face turned a deeper shade of red, and his eyes narrowed, though he tried to keep them from meeting mine. I could feel the shift in the air. For years he had been the one holding power over me, but in that moment, it slipped right out of his hands. I looked at him, calm and steady. "Saving for it?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "No, Richard, this isn't a splurge. It's just my life now." My voice was quiet, but it carried. I could see people nearby, strangers even, turning their heads to watch. He clenched his jaw, muttering something about not being impressed. But it was too late. The staff was already treating me with more respect than he had ever shown anyone. The bellhop appeared, bowing slightly before lifting my luggage, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. The receptionist slid me a folder with details about spa appointments and dinner reservations, included with my suite. Richard stood frozen, his hands tightening around the strap of his bag. I could see the storm brewing in his eyes, but he couldn't unleash it here, not when every word would make him look smaller. The silence around him said everything. His power, his arrogance, his control over the room, it was gone. As I stepped toward the private elevator, I didn't even have to say anything more. The sound of my heels clicking against the marble, the staff walking at my side, and the hush that followed me said it all. For once, Richard was the one standing in the background, invisible, with nothing left to prove, and I was finally free of his shadow. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped into the suite that felt more like a palace than a room. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows with a sweeping view of the city, a living room that could fit my entire apartment inside it, and details so perfect it almost didn't feel real. I set my bag down slowly, letting myself take it all in. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I just felt proud. The bellhop placed my luggage by the door, gave me a polite nod, and left me standing in the quiet glow of the room. I walked across the soft carpet, running my hand along the polished table, the velvet couch, the balcony doors that opened up to the skyline. I had dreamed of a moment like this, not because of the luxury, but because it meant I had finally climbed out of the box my uncle had tried to shove me into my whole life. I thought back to the lobby, to Richard's face when the receptionist announced the presidential suite. That image burned itself into my memory like a painting I'd never forget. The way his eyes darted, the way his smirk collapsed, the silence that wrapped around him. It was better than any speech I could have given him. I didn't have to argue. I didn't have to defend myself. The truth spoke louder than words ever could. Not long after, my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin, Hannah. "I can't believe you pulled that off. You should have seen Uncle Richard after you left. He didn't know where to look." I laughed out loud, a real laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. For years, I'd been the quiet one in the family, the one they underestimated. Now they had seen another side of me, and Richard, he would never forget this day. I slid open the balcony doors and stepped outside. The air was warm, the city lights glittering like stars laid out at my feet. I leaned on the railing and closed my eyes, feeling the breeze wash over me. For once, I wasn't replaying his insults in my head. I wasn't doubting myself or wishing I could shrink away. I was exactly where I belonged. Somewhere below, in one of the standard rooms, Richard was probably sulking, his pride bruised beyond repair. And that was fine. Let him stew in silence. I didn't need to chase his approval anymore. I had my own life, my own success, and this suite was proof that I had built it all on my own terms. As I stood there, looking out over the city, a calm smile spread across my face. This wasn't just a vacation, it was freedom. And for the first time, I realized I didn't just win against Richard. I had finally won back myself. And that's how it ended. If you've ever proved someone wrong who doubted you, you know how sweet that moment feels. Make sure to subscribe for more stories of revenge, drama, and life lessons. Give this video a like, share it with a friend, and tell me your own story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for being here. This is more than just a channel. It's our little community.